Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy Mega Meeple.
Greetings and welcome to the Mega Meeple, the show all about gamers and the games that bring them together. This is episode 56, and you may have noticed that last weekend you didn't get an episode. There was no and even this week the episode is about a day late. But you know, hey, last weekend I was laid up with some pretty bad back pain. In fact, I'm still kind of nursing through it and trudging through that forest. And then this past week, everybody's, a lot of people, most people, not me, is at Origins. And also yesterday was Father's Day. So I figured, well, you know, if I miss a day, if the episode drops a day late, you know, it's not going to matter. Because people are either celebrating Father's Day or they're coming home from Origins. They're not going to be listening to the episode like right now. So I could stand to have it a day late. As for those of you know, I mean, typically the episodes drop on our website on Sundays, and then they appear on iTunes, usually on Monday mornings. So, but you know, hey, I had to take last weekend off to recoup and kind of nurse my wounds, basically with my back not feeling well. And then this past weekend, I was like, well, you know, it's a day late, you know, not much. What are you going to do? Now, I want to make an announcement that I'm going to be tweaking, well, not so much the content of the podcast, but I'm going to be making some adjustments on how I approach certain segments of the podcast. As you know, we are well into our second year as a show. And for those of you who listen to any degree of regularity knows that I pride myself in maintaining a family-friendly show. It's a show that, you could listen in the car with your kids or your parents or whatever and not have to apologize for the content. But if you've listened to any length of time, you know that I do not shy away from some of the more sensitive or controversial content and topics. I mean, I've talked about one episode. I've talked about depression and suicide, and one episode we've talked about sexual harassment and sexual predators in the gaming community. When I've done those episodes, I did give you a fair warning at the beginning, saying, "Okay, this episode is going to deal with these topics. So if you feel that you're uncomfortable with those particular subjects or topics, feel free not to listen, or listeners' discretion is advised," type of thing. Adjustment to the approach that I do primarily for my rants when I do a rant segment. Yeah, those are going to, from this point on, maybe not safe for work. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to turn into Sam Kinison and be sprinkling a bunch of F-bombs every other syllable in my rants, but, if I'm going to be talking about a rant or something that I'm really passionate about, it may be more difficult for me to, curb my language, so to speak. Otherwise, it's just not going to come off as natural or normal. Because as me, like just any other person, if I get passionate about something, I'm gonna let a few cuss words slip. Now, like I said, I'm not going to be dropping F-bombs and if I do, then I will bleep those out. But especially when I'm doing my rants, we're going to get a bit more, shall we say, salty, more so than just the occasional damn or hell. So, but don't worry, I will give you a warning at the beginning of the episode if that particular episode is, or that particular rant or segment of the episode contains said language. So don't worry. Now, about a week and a half ago, it was announced that Android Netrunner is Fantasy Flight Games is pulling the plug on it. It is no longer going to be in production, at least from FFG. Now they have one final deluxe expansion coming out, and after that is going to be it. They're not going to produce the LCG anymore because their license for the game has run out. It has expired. Now, this is news, but I'm not going to report it like news. I mean, there are other podcasts or other websites or videos that do news type format where they're just, flat out telling you, this is what's going on in the gaming industry. My approach, and this is another probably tweak that I'm going to do with the approach that I do with these things, is I'm not going to so much report the news. Is if I do the news, I will give what I call like a color commentary or my personal take on it, or my op-ed, I guess you could call it. But as far as the Android Netrunner license, I really don't give a rip. I mean, it's a good game. I haven't played it in a while because I've said before, my roommate doesn't like card games, so good luck in playing that with him. And the local group here, it's good luck in being even welcome to play a game if you're not a tournament level player. If you're a newbie or a casual player, forget it. They can't give you the time of day here, and that's fine with me. To hell with them. But the thing is, didn't Fantasy Flight Games see this coming? I mean, if you have a license on something and you have an expiration date on it, you kind of know that it's coming. I mean, they came out with a second edition to the thing, and it was supposed to be, infuse new life into this card game and take a kind of a stale card game and give it new vitalize it and make it more welcoming to new players and all these, and then now they're not producing it anymore because the license ran out. So my opinion on this is basically no big loss, goodbye and good riddance. Now I'm going to make a prediction. I don't have any crystal ball. I don't have any insider industry information. This is just my suspicion. This is what I think is going to happen. And if or when it does happen, I will say on the episode, I will refer back to this episode 56 and say, okay, go back and listen to this, and where I first predicted this happened. But this is my take. This is what I think is going to happen. I think Wizards of the Coast is going to release Android Netrunner, but they're going to release it as a CCG. The whole, monthly pack of cards that everybody's going to get, they're going to do away with that, and they're going to release it as a collectible card game. That's what I think is going to happen. And when it does, I will refer you all back to this episode and tell you, oh, all right, back in episode 56, listen to what I said. I was right. So I look forward to that. This past week, my video segment, I think it's my 4th or 5th segment for the Dice Towers Board Game Breakfast, was on their Board Game Breakfast video series on the Dice Tower YouTube channel. Go check that out. But what I'm finding is when I first started doing this about a month or so ago, I was told by Tom that he has a hardline 2-minute limit for the video segments. So, and I've been doing well for keeping it my contributions to under 2 minutes. But usually when I edit the raw footage together, almost always it's more than 2 minutes long. So then I had to go back and it was like, okay, let's trim this down, let's trim that out, and let's tighten this up, So basically, I'll have the short 2-minute segment that I submit into the Dice Tower, and then I have the original edit. I'll call it the director's cut, which is usually about 2.5 to 3 minutes long. Too long to submit to the Board Game Breakfast. What I'm doing is, submitting my contribution to the Board Game Breakfast, posting on the Mega Meeple YouTube channel what I call the director's cut. In fact, I have a playlist there called Mega Meeple Rants, and those videos in that playlist is basically the director's cut of all my Board Game Breakfast video segment contributions. So if you want to see unedited version, so to speak, or some extra exclusive content of those video segments, just go to the Mega Meeple YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell thingy, or however hell YouTube changes how they do things like almost every other month. So however YouTube is doing it now, you know what you need to do is you go there, and I'll be posting some director's cut versions. Every single hour in FLGS, a gamer plays a new game. Out of the 98,000 games on BGG, only a few are given the playtime they deserve. For tens of thousands of games, the joy of being played by happy gamers everywhere is something that they will never know. Will you be an angel for one of these lost games? Every day, innocent games are ignored, unplayed, and left to die on the shelf of shame. And they are crying out for help. Please go to our PodPledge page and support the Mega Meeple with a monthly gift right now. For just $5 a month, only 17 cents a day, you'll help rescue a game from the dust bunnies. You'll provide card sleeving, miniature paints, dice rolling, and baggies. Go now and pledge to the Mega Meeple, and you'll receive numerous rewards, including shoutouts, as well as exclusive content and merch. A game can be given a second chance at life, thanks to you. Right now, there is a lonely game that desperately needs you. Your donation says, I care, and I'm here to help. Please donate right now. Links are found on the show notes of this episode and on the Mega Meeple website. Well, my guest this episode is Chaz Marler of Pair of Dice, and he is also the mastermind behind the PodPledge crowdfunding website. So while you are listening to my interview with Chaz, why don't you go over to the PodPledge page and go to the Mega Meeple project page and donate $5 a month. Just a measly $5 a month. I mean, a coffee at your local Starbucks is at least twice that amount. And you could do that. You do that every morning practically on your way to work, right? So all they need is $5 a month. That's all it takes to help the Mega Meeple with hosting cost, with the website and Libsyn and all that kind of happy horse crap. All right, welcome back to the Mega Meeple. And we have another very special guest this week. And this is somebody that not only that I've followed and watched since my time in the board gaming circles, but actually is become a good friend and a good mentor to me with things like the just podcasting and YouTube stuff, and just getting our name out there. And it's cool that I want to bring him on this week, so all of you can benefit from his wisdom as well. We have Chaz Marler from Pair of Dice Paradise. Chaz, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing really good, and it's really great to talk to you, Tom. We've talked online a lot, but I realized that this is the first time I've actually heard your voice, especially live. So this is like an extra special treat to be here with you today.
Oh, thank you for coming on and taking the time. So, So tell us for those of my listeners out there that because there's been some listeners I told them I'd be like real excited. I have Jamie Stegmaier on the show, and they'd be like, who? They would have Scythe on their shelf. They would play Scythe, but it was like, who? Or yesterday, I recorded an interview with Rob Davio, and one of our, I was like, yeah, I'm recording Rob Davio, and I was like, who? I was like, yeah, that game you played last week, Pandemic Legacy, that guy. Oh, okay, yeah. So, for those of you who don't recognize the name Chaz Marler, who is Chaz Marler?
Well, nothing as illustrious as designing Pandemic Legacy, that's for sure. I have a YouTube channel called Pair of Dice Paradise, and I've also contributed frequently to the Dice Tower, especially the Board Game Breakfast show. I had a segment on there. I did 200 segments, and I'm kind of gearing up, getting some ideas for another run of segments here. And I've also kind of just done some videos straight for their channel. So both the Dice Tower and the Pair of Dice Paradise YouTube channels are where I have been floating around a lot recently.
Okay. So now you cover quite a few things of you do components of for board games, and just little interesting topics of conversation about. I remember one where you did our board games getting too expensive, or is Kickstarter killing board games and stuff like that. But what are some other subjects that you guys have covered on the show?
I have one of my favorite series that I've done is going and finding really strange games at thrift stores like Goodwill and St. Vincent de Paul, and then kind of doing almost a mystery science theater type of review of it called Thrift Sift. Just kind of those are kind of my favorites because I let myself experiment and do whatever I want with those. And sometimes that involves just weird cutaways or imaginary scenes or even costumes and stuff. And I just try to have a lot of fun with those. Then you mentioned the component videos, kind of tricking out games by upgrading the components, and sometimes to enhance the experience, and sometimes just to kind of add some flair to the game, even if it's completely superfluous flair to it that's not necessary. The components and the thrift stores are two of my favorite series. And you also mentioned like a lot of the editorials. Doing the segment for Board Game Breakfast actually was a really good exercise, I found, as a content creator, because it forced me to be on a weekly schedule, and the segments were limited to 3 minutes in length. So it also taught me how to be a really good editor. There's nothing quite as eye-opening as a content creator as taking a five minutes worth of footage and realizing you have to find the 3 minutes of it that actually matter and cut away all the chaff. It actually has taught me a lot about creating content and streamlining and finding out what's really important in content.
Wow. You have a thing called PodPledge. How did that come about? And
that came about. What PodPledge is a crowdfunding website that I use and built, and it's geared specifically to have tools for media makers and content creators. And the way that it came about is that I actually have a background in web development, specifically e-commerce web programming. I've had an e-commerce web development business since 2001, and so when I got into kind of starting to crowdfund for Pair of Dice Paradise as one of the finance streams for it, I wanted a very specific set of features that it could do, kind of combining what Kickstarter does and combining what Patreon does, kind of with the big annual projects with the ongoing subscription options. And there wasn't anything that really combined the two and gave the backers the options of how they wanted to back. So I realized after a couple months of searching, one day it dawned on me, oh, wait a minute, this is what I do for a living. Why don't I just build what I want? And so took a few months with my team and everything, and we built about 3 years ago now, we built the first version and kind of started using it and vetting it out and building out the features, and then started bringing on, especially over this last year, started bringing on more other content creators to really make something that hopefully can contribute and be a tool that can be useful and start to be a place that people start to go to look to back content creators. If that happens, that's really my goal for it, and that would really be fulfilling to achieve that level of kind of a critical mass for the site.
Right, and full disclosure, I am one of the content creators that are on that platform. So just so everybody knows, I'm not getting paid to say this. This is just something that I've benefited from, and I really enjoy the support and the camaraderie and encouragement that all the content creators on PodPledge give to each other. So I want to make sure that all the other people out there know about this and they could benefit from that as well.
That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that I've talked about PodPledge on several other platforms and stuff, but there's an aspect of it that hasn't really been touched on that you can really highlight and demonstrate yourself, and that is the community and the camaraderie aspect of it. One thing that's really impressed me from my side of things is of all of there's about 14 or so projects that are currently running on PodPledge right now. And what I've done is I've set up like a Facebook group just for people that are project creators. And I've done a few live streams, kind of educational live streams and stuff like that for content creators. And I want to do more of those. I'm trying to schedule those out and make like a calendar to do them consistently. But for all of the discussions and live streams and other things that we've done to build up that community, you have always been like front row center participating in all of these and soaking up all of our discussions, like a sponge, and not just listening, but participating. I remember a couple of the live streams that we've done. I know that we did kind of a page review looking at the images and the descriptions that your own page had, and we were talking about maybe some ideas for improvements that could be made. Hey, someone coming to your page might want to see this information about you and see this, and within like 3 days or so, boom, all of those ideas were fleshed out and implemented. So from my side of the fence, I'm really excited to see that with people getting involved, and like I said, it really impressed me, and it really kind of made me excited to see how you can get your own stuff to grow from hopefully the discussions and the training sessions that we've been setting up and doing together.
Yes, and I thoroughly enjoy that. Thank you. I mean, I've always been taught, you can only get out of something what you put into it. You can't just sit at home and wait for something nice, pretty package to arrive at your doorstep with a little bow on it with everything that you want and need. You got to put some dig your hands in there and do some work yourself. So I've always been, and I've always had the aspect of it doesn't matter who someone is, you could always learn from somebody. you could always learn something from somebody. It doesn't matter what it is or who they are. So,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
You're interviewing me now.
We flipped it around. So tell me, Tom, about your childhood.
So yeah, let's talk about some of the you have the Facebook for the group. You have the periodic YouTube things or YouTube chats and videos, and let's talk about some of the things that some of the success stories, because you have some people on there that have besides me that has really taken this thing and really did some great things with it.
The first one I know that jumps to mind is a good friend of mine, and also another guy that just creates a great podcast with his partner is Marty Connell of Rolling Dice and Taking Names. Marty and Tony together, this team, and with their podcast, they were the first person other than me that actually started using the site. And what's really cool is it's been 2 or 3 years now that they've been on it and using it, and they're real trepidatious about They were really cautious about entering the crowdfunding platform to begin with. But I've seen them continually take strides to listen and take feedback from their audience and make incremental improvements to their own podcast. And I know that Marty would never tell you this because he wouldn't want to feel like he's bragging, but I'll do it on his behalf.
Okay.
Their podcast, they just launched their 2018 campaign for the year of 2018 earlier this year, oddly enough. And in the first month of launching this year's campaign, they made more than they did the entire first year of their campaign. So it's been a slow, steady growth for them, but the differences in their support and their backing, what they're doing with it, is just like a night and day substantial difference, and it's really exciting to see them grow like that.
Oh yeah, and Tony and Marty are local to Charlotte here, where I'm at, and
that's right.
Yeah. So I've played quite a few games of Ashes with Marty, and I've probably met Tony, but probably in my early times, early experience with board games, because I've only been in board games maybe like 3.5 years. So I probably met Tony and played games with him, but just didn't know who he was. Because they're very
sneaks up on
they're very I mean, that's one thing I've yet to experience in the gaming circle and community are egos. And I didn't even know when I first met Marty. I didn't know he had a podcast until like maybe a few months later. It's like I came across a video segment that he did for the Dice Tower. It's like, I know that guy.
Yeah. Wait a minute. That's the guy I played Ashes with last week. What's he doing on YouTube? Yep.
So, yeah, but those guys. If anybody out there has not heard their podcast, check it out. These guys are they have you could tell just by the banter back and forth between those two that they have a lot of fun at gaming, and they have a lot of fun talking about it. So
oh yes, yeah, they definitely do. They try to really show how much fun they're having, and really just entertain each other as much as the audience, it seems, which I think comes through.
Yeah. Yes,
doing the table scraps segments I've done, where I basically have the audience comes up with a topic ahead of time, and then kind of do a live Q&A chat with the audience. But it's me reading the YouTube comments and questions and then responding to it. And they're about recording sessions can be 15 to 45 minutes or so. And I realized about halfway through each one, it's like I'm sitting here having a conversation with myself. Even though I'm reading other people's comments, I'm just talking to myself. And it starts to kind of you become self-aware of it after a while, and you have to find this Zen place or it'll kind of mess you up sometimes.
Yeah, so basically what I've done now is I've just taken that particular segment and turned it into like a Tom rants type of thing. So I'll just rant about something. So I call it sort of like the cross between Tom Vassel's Tom Thinks and Dennis Miller's rants, if you remember him. So.
Well, you can never have too many rants on the internet, so I'm all for that. But yeah, this little piece of paper tacked up next to my computer that said, speak sincerely, emote fearlessly, and edit ruthlessly. And you can never edit too ruthlessly.
Yes.
The store, I mean, that's a direct result of the background in the e-commerce programming and stuff, making online stores for everyone else. I realized, well, why don't I add one for myself? Because I had some bling of my own from previous fundraisers that was piling up. You got 20 left of this and 15 left of that, and it's like, well, I can either lug these to conventions or I can try and sell them directly. It's like, wait, again, that's what I do. Why don't I do that? And what's really nice about that is I think that the option to like set up merchandise, and you can take you can upload a picture of it, give it its name, a description, put in its dimensions and weight, and then the fundraising page will add a little shop tab that has all of basically your mini store in it with all your products and everything, and people will add it to their cart and check out just like a normal store, and it will automatically calculate real-time shipping fees for you and figure that out and handle all the shipping stuff. And then in your account area where you've created your products, there'll be another page on the back end that lists, here's everything that has sold and who you need to ship it to. You can mark it as shipped or send them a note if you have questions and all that good stuff. And that's all kind of rolled in there. And I personally think that is one of those epiphany moments I had where it's like, wow, now this is something that I think truly is unique and different that is a service that PodPledge can be providing that other fundraising platforms just don't have. And it was kind of like merging in that e-commerce background into it to really try and hopefully provide something that's a little bit different and helpful to people.
Now, for people that would go to PodPledge, if you go to the Browse Project page, you'll see that everybody. You'll see the Mega Meeple. You'll see Marty and Tony. You'll see so Chaz and a few others, but a lot of them. It looks like a lot of them are other board game content creators or gaming content creators. So, do you have to be a gaming content creator to join, or can you do like a podcast about cooking or something like that?
That is a really good question. And now the door is open to anybody on any topic that is making media or making content. So, a podcast, a YouTube channel, a blog, whatever. If you're making content, it doesn't have to be about board games. The reason that there are currently so many board game people on there is because, well, that's the community that I'm involved with. So I figured instead of trying to cast a really wide net and just kind of shotgun approach, bring in everyone, it's like, well, why don't I start working with the people I know and admire their work and I know I can reach out to, and I have already established a voice in this community. And why don't I try to help my fellow board game media people first? So that's and it's been working that way, which is really nice to see. The response has been really great from my friends I've made in the community and stuff. But yeah, there is already on here. There is a person who has a webcomic about a robot lab, or at least a scientist that has a robot friend. So there's a webcomic about that, and there's also someone who does knitting, and does a lot of knitting crafts and stuff like that. And I believe it's called Letedora Crafts, which is her blog. Yeah. And so that's really cool to see. So yeah, it's already starting to branch out a little bit, which is very exciting. But there's the door's open to basically anyone who's creating content.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's very good. And so I know people that may be interested in doing that. Probably the first thing they're going to want to know is how much does it cost, or what is the fee structure?
Oh, that's a very good question too. The the cost to get up and running, there's no cost. It's free to set up and use. And the free structure is basically the same type of established industry standard structure. You're not the only one spitting all over their mic now trying to say certain phrases. The same kind of industry standard structure. It's basically two parts. One is the credit card and PayPal fees that those companies will charge, and that's going to be whatever PayPal and the credit card companies, their little tiny slice that they take. And then PodPledge itself has a small percentage, usually around just 5% that it takes as well, to help keep this website going and, the marketing and hopefully growing the site and everything, being able to finance those resources. So, but yeah, getting up and running. So basically, there's no cost to it. And as pledges of support come in, it's just the service fees that are applied to those.
Okay. And you could set up how the frequency of like if someone like for some of these content creators that have like an ongoing or a monthly donation of people supporting them on a monthly basis. Can you set it up like so much money or the amount that you've raised that month is going to be deposited either in your bank or your PayPal on a particular day of the month? Or
exactly. Right now, the disbursement schedule is the beginning of each month. All the funds that have been earned go and get distributed. And when you create the project, you can specify, hey, I want to be paid by PayPal, or hey, I want you just to make a direct deposit to my bank account. So you can set up the way you would prefer to be paid, and that's how the distributions will be done. And as the plan is, as the site continues to grow and the frequency of these disbursements, we want to increase it to, bi-weekly, to eventually, every Friday or something, have the disbursements go out. We just need to hit that critical mass to allow the banking to be able to be set up that, more and more frequently.
Okay, cool. And I can tell you from experience that the people that are a part of this and part of the Facebook group and in YouTube chats and so forth, you can't come across a better group of people. But Chaz, thank you so much for joining us this week. Appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. Like we were just saying, rising tide raises all boats. I'm happy to come and help you produce some content. Hopefully, provide some sort of useful information to somebody out there that's listening. And I'm hoping to be able to continue, we're working along with you and the other people in the board game community and on PodPledge to hopefully help us all better our craft.
Definitely, and yeah, looking forward to that. And but before we go, we like to play a game with all of our guests, and it's called the Mega Meeple Rapid Fire Round. It has nothing to do with gaming, but it just gives our listeners an idea of the personality of our guests if they haven't already deduced during the interview. So basically, I'll just rattle off two things, and you tell me which one you prefer over the other. Ready?
Okay. Yes.
All right. Zombies or vampires?
Ooh. Zombies.
All right. Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Lord of the Rings.
All right. James Bond or Jason Bourne?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one, actually. I'm going to probably just barely edge on the side of James Bond.
All right. Marvel or DC?
Ooh, Marvel.
Okay. And lastly, sausage or bacon?
I got to do you a service. I got to answer honestly. It's always one of each.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Chaz. Well, if people want to find out about you and your Paradise, or even if they want to check out PodPledge and sign up for that, where would they go?
Okay, for Pair of Dice Paradise, the best two places to find me there are going to be on YouTube at youtube.com/Pair of Dice Paradise, all one word, or on Twitter where I'm at Dice Paradise. feel free to contact me there. I'd love to chat about stuff. And for the PodPledge stuff, the PodPledge Twitter account is just at PodPledge. And there is a PodPledge YouTube channel as well, which has a few videos I produced for it a couple years ago. I'm in the process this year. We're gonna make a suite of new videos with kind of a different approach. We want to make a content creator community college series that really can involve some of the people that are now using PodPledge. So if you want to not only hear kind of motivational and instructional content, not just from me, but hopefully from others that are involved in the community, that'll hopefully be the place to check it out.
Cool. And of course, we'll have links to those things on the show notes of this episode. Well, Chaz, thank you so much again. I appreciate you coming on. And yeah, if any content creators out there, doesn't even have to be gamers, even though I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you're a gamer. But hey, like I said, if you like talking about board games and stuff, start a podcast. Gaming podcast is like dice. You can never have too many of them.
Absolutely true.
So I encourage you to, because I said at the very beginning when I started this podcast, like, you know what, I'm bored, I'm retired, I have a lot of time on my hands. So what do I like talking about? Yeah, it's board games. So, but if you enjoy board games and you enjoy talking about it, start a podcast or start a YouTube channel, or don't. And as we've talked about on the PodPledge Facebook and YouTube, says like, don't go after your numbers. Just do it because you enjoy doing it, and that's
absolutely. You have to have the passion. If you can find something that you have that passion about, go for it.
Yep, definitely. So I just encourage all my listeners out there to do something that you're passionate about, and do something that brings you happiness and joy, and something you enjoy doing. All right. Thank you so much for downloading and listening. And stay tuned next week, as my guest will be Kirk and Emily Dennison talking about Gearworks. So if you haven't already, go over to iTunes and subscribe. That way you will find out when that episode drops. And while you're there, put out some of that 5-star loving and leave us a great review. It really helps us out. And if you could follow us on any of our social media pages, all the links are found on the website, along with a bunch of other things like reviews, interviews, blogs, so forth. And the website is www.megameeple.com. And again, don't forget to support us on PodPledge or Patreon. The links to those are also found on the website. And if you're not able to help us out financially, at the very least, you're able to spread the word to all your friends at the gaming table. Tell them about the Mega Meeple, the podcast, the YouTube channel. Word of mouth really helps out. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you will join us again next week. Until then, we will see you at the gaming table.
You can,
that one may take some editing.
Oh, God. I'm making it worse. So hopefully you can use that. Easy enough. It'll be really interesting to see how I butcher that. Oh yes, editing is your best friend. I have a saying. I had a little piece of paper tacked up next to my computer for a few months actually, and it was my 3 rules. It was speak truthfully, emote. Oh darn it! I can't think of the word. Hang on, I'll be right back.
All right.
I'm gonna grab the thing. I'm gonna have a visual aid.
Sennheiser E845S.
I really wish I knew what that was.
That's
There's a saying that I've heard repeated and implemented, which is a rising tide. Wait, darn it. The phrase is actually a rising tide rises all boats. No, that's not it either. A rising tide raises all boats. It's probably that.